All right, coaches, welcome back here. Ask a Coach Exo Clinics. This is becoming one of my favorite things to do. We've gotten a lot of questions from you guys, and certainly we're trying to get these answered. And, as much as I'd like to say, this is for you guys, and it is, I love doing this, and I absolutely love the questions that come in. I know there's been great interaction over email, and then certainly we're trying to put together these videos here on a weekly basis. Here in the summer, we're going to try to do a little bit more. Just we're backlogged with some questions. But we're certainly going to try to do our best. So again, kicking off here tonight, we've got a couple good questions here. A lot of good questions came in. Some got answered over email. Some are going to get answered here tonight. We'll choose four for you guys here, and we'll go from there. And again, just never hesitate to send in your questions. Interact with us, send us emails, ask us about the site, ask us about our resources. There are a lot of good things on that site. From the perfect marriage to the OC school to the RPO lab, there's a ton of resources for you guys to be getting ready for your upcoming season. And certainly some of the organizational things that you get with the OC school, I think, as you get here into June and into July, are going to be really beneficial for some guys, and just confirm on some things and maybe give you guys some new ideas. And we've got a few more things coming your way before the summer comes to an end here. So again, looking at this first question here, obviously my favorite pin and pull, and I like to run pin and pull. And, I think the one way, it's just about what formation are you going to get into. And, if you're going to get them in one high, do you have to be able to beat man coverage? In the end, you're trying to get, you're going to run pin and pull in this direction. You're trying to get someone to that green grass right there. So again, just drawing up the pin and pull here. What we talk about with our tight end, he's going to be married to that defensive end. This guy's going to be down on a 3 technique if that's how it's going to sort out. These guys in here have got to figure out, all right, there's 2 guys in the box. Now the guard, the first puller, is going to have really the +1 or the boundary safety. So as he's pulling around, he's going to have the boundary safety or that forced defender down in there. And now this guard is going to grab that nose. The center now is going to mirror pull this front side linebacker, the front side play here, and he's going to mirror pull. So what does that mean? Just depending on how hard this guy's going to play downhill, he could enter up into this gap if there is a space. If not, he could end up coming all the way around that block by the tight end right there. And again, you're going to have the tailback coming across right here. Go big on big. And again, the question was favorite pin and pull RPO. So obviously there's the run play. And then it's just all about, to me, I'm a big slant guy. You heard it in the last Ask Your Coach session, about slant routes. I'm just going to run slants to this area right here, and we're going to read that thing 1. And now this guy's going to run a 3-step slant. Really, those things are going to become 90s. And then there's 2. Obviously, I've got some other answers and some other things that we can do here, but that would be my favorite pin and pull RPO. 2x2, you balance off that defense. I like the run game concept, specifically against 4-down teams. The RPO is always going to be a part of it. I think it's excellent. I think it gives you guys some answers, because when you really think about this run play, this is probably the hardest block here for your offensive line if you were going to run that tackle here. So again, there's some other things that we can talk about with pin and pull. So keep those questions coming in. We've got a dynamic way to run your quarterback with pin and pull that is really good. So someone asked that question. We'll get that thing maybe in our next session or somewhere down the road there. So again, appreciate these guys, these questions coming in. Again, this is for you guys. Ask your questions. Some of them can be really basic, and some of them are, and that's great. And I get them answered over email. I've even gotten on the phone with a couple coaches. But again, if you want to maybe get one of these featured on here, send it in, and we'll see, where it goes. But certainly that's how some of these got on here today. So again, moving over here to number 2, guard tackle counter or GY counter. So again, I like counter. I like to run both of those versions. But I think, I'll tell you this. I know talking to a lot of guys about counter and some of the differences and between GT counter and GY counter, and I think there's arguments, where I think they're both really good, and I think there's pros and cons with both of those. But I think, when you pull your guard and your tackle, your tackle has got to have enough savviness to have some space to see how this guard is going to block that at the point of attack if you're running counter there. So I would just say one of the negatives is just the space, but I think it comes down to coaching. It comes down to that pull technique that you're giving that tackle. But I think that's one thing I've talked to guys about, why they like GY counter or GH counter in this example right here is just the spacing with that. But again, I think if you're going to run the football and counter is going to be a staple play, I think you're going to want both. I think there's a lot of versatility with this run play. I think if you're going to have H's that are going to get involved in your run game, and whether you're a split zone play team or a counter team or a power team, those guys are going to be trained every day in everyday drills and throughout summer and training camp with their block techniques, and counter certainly got to be one of them. But I think if I had to choose one because of the versatility, if I've got a good H-back or tight end, I'm probably going to choose GT counter just because those guys are going to get the most work with our offensive line, and then the ability to throw arrows in different RPOs and run our quarterback and free up that Y as a different blocker on the back side of the play with that. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons to GT counter or GY counter. So hopefully I answered your question, but I think you just got to figure out what your personnel is all about, how much you can get taught. And then I think in a perfect world, you run both. So hopefully that helps. Again, guys, send in your questions, subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is going to be awesome. We're going to try to do this here a couple times a week as we continue through summer. And then once we get into fall, I think we're going to schedule this thing out once a week. And that's when we can get into some certain situations where guys might say, hey, I'm playing XYZ school here in a couple of weeks. I know they're a 3-3 stack. And, what do you think about this? And then maybe I can answer it. Maybe I can help you with that. Maybe I'm certain you guys have always helped me with what I'm doing as a coach as well. So getting on to this next one right here, a coach had asked me, calling plays from the box or from the field. So here's what I would tell you, that I'm the head coach of Kaiser University, and I call the plays and I call them from the field. Obviously, I'm the head coach, and I think in college football, typically the head coach is on the field unless there's some crazy circumstances to why he's not. But I can tell you this: my last high school, one of my last high school games I've coached, we won a state championship. For that. That second half of the season and that playoff run, I had a really good staff. I was the head coach. I actually went into the box. So at the state championship game, I'm up in the box. We were able to win that football game. And I remember calling plays from the box. And it was a little bit hard being away from our team when that thing came to the end. But I think when it comes down to it, if I had a choice, I would choose the box. And I think that's my preference. I know that, you look at college football and there's so many things going on in college football, and you see these coordinators, some of them want to be on the field because they want the TV time, because that's how they're going to get their head job. That's how they're going to get, notoriety and brand ability and all those things, and marketing with that. But I think when it comes down to it, if I could be up in the press box, my time as a coordinator in high school when I wasn't the head coach, was unbelievable. I could be up in the box, I could spread out my sheets, I could have a lot of focus, and I could drink my Diet Pepsi, and just I liked being up in the box. Obviously, from week to week, press boxes and circumstances change, but I think when it comes down to it, I would choose the box. And I'll just talk to you a little bit about why I think. Number one for me, it's the view. I had a chance to spend some time with the Buffalo Bills. I was up in the box with the offensive coordinator, charting plays. That's an unbelievable view from week to week, and just then you have that iPad and you're getting the still shots. So, but I think the view is the first thing that I would say, and I've adapted to the field. I think I do a really good job of understanding our process as an offensive staff, and that's one of the things we talk about in the offensive coordinator school is your process. If you're on the field calling plays, who's watching what, who's up in the box watching what, who's on the field watching what. What's that communication process like? So, but I think being up in the box, the view is unbelievable. I think the communication process for me, if I am the play caller and I'm the guy that's going to be talking to the signal guys, obviously that thing's got to be, tuned up and ready to go. But I think for me, if I'm trying to get intel from the box, from the field, you skip a step if you're the guy up in the box. You're seeing, all right, where's that boundary safety? Where's the rotation going to come from? Are we going to get nickel Sam pressure or anything like that? So I think you can actually skip a communication step when you're up in the box, and I think that's definitely a pro towards that. And then I think processing, for me, being up in the box, and if it's a still environment, I think I can have my drinks, I can have all my sheets, I can have my notes, I can sit there. I've got my different colored pens and pencils, and I think processing what's going on. I honestly feel it's a little bit slower for me up in the box, and I just think I get in the zone when I'm up in the box, and those times I've been able to call it. So I think you as a coordinator, you got to just make a decision. If you're the offensive coordinator and it's your first time calling plays, I think you're going to have to look at how strong is your staff, and that's one of the things we'll talk about here in a second. But again, and another thing is my focus when I'm in the box is it can be really good, and it's honed in on just being the offensive coordinator and looking at my call sheet and looking at what we're getting done, and what are some of the defensive down and distance tendencies that we're getting there. So it allows me to focus with that. And sometimes when you're on the field, there's so many different things going on. I got to talk to an official, or I've got to yell at a defensive player, or get with our defensive coaches, or get with the special teams coach. I'm kind of pulled away, but that's part of being a head coach, and I love it, and that's fine. And I've obviously developed a process for that. But I think when it comes down to it, I would choose being in the box, and I would recommend that. I think there are some negatives. I think when you're in the box, and if it's an enclosed box, sometimes the feel of the game, you're not really into it. You're in this box, you've got your headset on, and maybe you just can't really feel exactly what's going on. And then sometimes communication, if sometimes some of my best communication is from the sideline right to the quarterback. If he comes to this sideline right away in between plays, or they get tackled on our side of the field, certainly the communication, I lose that being up in the box. And then meeting with the offense, I think that the opportunity to meet with the offense and get with the tight ends and get with the running backs and get with these different coaches on the field, I think is so important. And you lose that, and obviously, getting a feel and being around the players can be a negative, in my opinion, with that of being in the box. And I just think it's something you have to evaluate as a coach as to how strong is your staff. Can you be away? You have to have trust in your staff. And then certainly the communication in between series, you're probably only going to talk to the quarterbacks on the headset. And you got to be able to make sure you guys can get that thing done. So it's a little bit about that. But I think when it comes down to it, if I had my choice, and if I ever have an opportunity to be just a play caller, I will do it from the box and try to navigate my process that way with my coaching staff. And certainly those are my thoughts on that. I'm certainly there's guys that have got a lot of other thoughts about that again. So again, here we are, Ask Coach, XO Clinics. This is going to be a weekly series for you guys. Continue to send in your questions. Anything that you want to talk about, anything offensively, anything fundamentally offensively, anything scheme-wise, anything maybe about your team, your players. If you send in some defensive questions, I'm certain I could try to answer them or get someone to answer them for you. But certainly this is one of the best highlights of my week is when I get a chance to look at some of these emails and we put together, some of these slides and be able to bring this to you guys. So again, I appreciate it. So let's get to this last one here. And, this one could go a lot of different ways here. So what's a good red zone man beater using motion? So certainly like to use motion. I like to be able to create some rubs and some different things with that. And I think, if I have to choose one, I think right now, I think there's, the thing, if you're going to get man coverage and that you're going to get some guys running and you're going to get the defense having to communicate. So if I'm going to isolate this guy in this corner, and if I can get this guy running, that's exactly what I want to do. And this guy doesn't know if I'm going all the way across, and then who's he got to communicate with. And if I come out here and I'm really tight, does he have to communicate with this guy with in and out breaks? And, just the more you can present at the defense, the better. But again, with this one right here, I would probably, choose to just send this guy in motion. You guys have seen some of these in our other videos where this guy's going to look like he's going to go in jet sweep motion here. The ball is going to be snapped. He's going to slam on the brakes, and he's just going to run this arrow route. The corner's going to get lost in there. And, really with this play right here, maybe you're running it as an RPO. And, as this guy comes down in here, you're really going to outflank everybody. If this guy were to match, you might give the ball and try to jam it up in there. The corner's probably not going to be a factor. You're going to try to retrace right there. So, as I look at this right here, I think, you can take a look at this motion. It's just what we would call jerk right here, and just, go really fast right there, and knowing that the corner is going to get lost in the mix there, get the ball snapped, run that arrow route, base that C gap, running probably off of an RPO is probably my first choice here. But, just talking about using motion as a man beater, I think that's as good as anything you guys can do. And I think you can incorporate that. But certainly there's so many other possibilities of using motion and using tight splits and motioning out, motioning in, motioning across, using fast motion, using motion as window dressing, and all those different things to create rubs and advantages. So again, appreciate that. Hopefully you guys can grab a coaching point or two from each one of these questions. Again, continue to send in those questions to coach@exoclinics.com. We'll get through those. I'll answer them via email. We'll put them on a video. And until next time, be on the lookout for the next video to be out in about a week.